so much for joining our volunteer all call tonight. North Carolina Dems have been working extremely hard since last November to make sure that not only are we fighting back at the local, state, but also our national level too when it comes to having an attorney general like Jeff Jackson right now who is suing the Trump administration. When you have local and state elected leaders like Governor Cooper, who is also on this call with us tonight, who fought back as hard as he possibly could and fought for people across North Carolina as our governor, from people like Lindsey Prather, Brian Kahn, Dante Pittman, who helped break a state legislative supermajority in the state house last year. We have so much to be proud of, but we also have so much work to do. And tonight, you all are going to learn a lot about how you all can get involved in helping in 2025 to make sure that 2026 is a year unlike any other for North Carolina Dems. My name is Anderson Clayton. I have the honor and the privilege of serving as the state party chair here today, and you all are going to hear from some phenomenal speakers tonight. You all are also going to meet some amazing staff members of the North Carolina Dems who are excited to work with each and every single one of you to make sure that we find what your job is in this state party and throughout this state to make sure that we make North Carolina bigger, brighter, and bluer in 2025 and in 2026. North Carolina is the third largest state party in the country right now. We have a year-round organizing program that is putting boots on the ground in each community. And if you're somebody on here tonight who's running for local municipal offices this year across our state, there are 1,100 folks that have stepped up to run at the local level, more than Republicans put up to run for office at the local level this year. And we're extremely proud and thankful to every single person who put their name on the ballot to represent their communities, because we know the closer you get to the bottom of the ballot, the closer that you get to your front door. We know that our city council races, our mayoral races are going to be some of the most important work that we could do in 2025 to make sure that we have got an infrastructure in this state ready for 2026 and to meet the moment. You all know that our pathway in North Carolina has been a long and grueling one for a Democratic Party, but we all saw in 2024 what we could do by winning 2 red to blue flips, the only state in the country to flip 2 statewide seats from red to blue last year, to break a supermajority in the state legislature, and to win 6 statewide Democratic victories. And that was due to the hard work of each and every single one of you. If you're a county chair, a precinct chair, a local organizer, an activist involved with our party, or in the grassroots organizations in any way across this state, thank you for the work that you do, because everything that we do relies on you all on the ground, and we know that. So I'm honored to be here tonight because we're going to walk you all through, again, how you can get involved this year in municipal races and also in volunteer cure operations that are happening for our Board of Elections that we all know has just switched to a Republican majority. Our Voter Protection Director, Kat Lawson, is going to walk you all through that later. But we've got some special guests that I want to make sure that you all hear from first. And we know that North Carolina has the ability to take a U.S. Senate seat in 2026. And we are so excited about the opportunity to have such a fighter like Governor Cooper running as our U.S. Senate candidate nominee for next year, making sure that North Carolina is truly represented in the best way possible. We saw Tom Tillis sell out North Carolina this year, both in the aspect of the opportunities for healthcare, but also when you look at the appointments that he made with Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., making people across our state suffer right now. And we know that Republicans in Washington, D.C. do not care about expanding healthcare opportunities for people across our state, making sure that rural North Carolina has the opportunities that it needs, and expanding access to public education in our communities and fully funding our schools. But we know we have the opportunity to do that when we send a Democrat to Washington, D.C. And that's exactly what we plan to do next year. And so it's my honor and my privilege, and we thank him for being on here tonight. Governor Cooper, take it away and help us tell our volunteers how important this work is going to be this year. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Anderson, and thank you, volunteers and candidates who've shown up here tonight, because you can and will make a difference in this election in November of 2026, because we know that statewide and in many of these close swing districts, their races are going to be close. It's going to come down to a few votes. And the work that you do, the calls that you make, the emails that you send, the texts you send, the social media you post, the family members you talk with, the coworkers you talk with, all of that can make a difference in North Carolina and across our country. Look, I don't have to tell you guys where we are in this point in the history of our country. We've never seen anything like it. Why in the world would Washington politicians come together to take the food out of children's mouth? Why in the world would Washington politicians vote to strip away health care? Why in the world would Washington politicians who bragged about wanting to cut the federal deficit send it soaring through the roof? Why would Washington politicians disrespect our veterans? It goes on and on. And you and I could talk about the bad things that are coming out of Washington because of the right-wing Republicans that are in control. We could talk about it all night. And in fact, many of you may be anxious, fearful, depressed about it. Maybe you even want to give up. Let me tell you this, there is a cure for that. And the cure is action. And you are taking action tonight and beginning the process of making sure we turn all of this around. I'm running for the Senate because I care about those everyday families who are finding too much month at the end of the money. They're having a hard time paying for groceries, utility bills, for rent, for medical expenses. We need people to go to Washington who will not just talk about it, but actually do something about it. And in North Carolina, you helped me do some great things. Together, we were able to bring in hundreds of thousands of great paying jobs, many in the clean energy sector. Together, we were able to get high-speed internet access to many parts of our state that didn't have it before. Together, we were able to erase $4 billion in medical debt for 2 million North Carolinians and prevent future medical debt. Together, we were able to fight discrimination and continue fighting for public education. And together, we were able to get Medicaid expansion, health insurance for 675,000 North Carolinians. Guys, all of that is a risk. All of that is at risk because of what's happening in Washington right now. I want to do something about it. I'm going to take my common sense problem solving, take it to Washington, make sure that I work with people there to get things done, not only for the people of North Carolina, but for the people of this country. And we know what's happening with our democracy. We know what's happening with the right to vote. And we must, every step of the way, fight against discrimination, fight for people's freedom, and fight this long arm of the government that right-wing Republicans are using now to get into people's business, getting to people's personal lives, and to make sure that we, every single day, we're working to help those people who are dreaming to get into the middle class but can't quite get there. For those who are in the middle class, they're just barely hanging on. We're having to deal with higher costs because this president is putting indiscriminate tariffs all across the world that end up affecting small businesses and hurting everyday consumers. But look, folks, I truly believe that our best days are ahead of us. I've been out there on the campaign trail. I talked to people in Western North Carolina just last week who are working hard to recover, even though the politicians in Washington who promised help have not delivered. They came swept into North Carolina and said they were going to fix everything. They were going to fix FEMA. And we know that FEMA hasn't worked as well as we wanted it to all the time, but now they've completely broken it. It's time to change things up in Washington. It's time to get the Washington insiders out of this. You wouldn't elect an arsonist to go and put out a fire. That's why I'm running for the United States Senate, because I'm going to go to Washington and work to put out that fire and put us on the right track. Be the kind of America that creates opportunities for everybody, the America that we want to be. And you guys can make it happen. I'm coming to you from my headquarters. We are working here all across the state. And let me tell you, there are other candidates on the ballot with me that we're going to work to get across the finish line together. And one very important one here tonight sits on our state Supreme Court. She was an extraordinary lawyer, fighting for everyday people's rights, fighting against the big guys who were trying to push them aside. She was standing up for them. Now on this court, she has fought for the Constitution. She has issued opinions that follow the Constitution. She knows she shouldn't rubber stamp right wing legislation that comes from the General Assembly just because they passed it. She follows the law. She follows the Constitution. She does what is fair. She believes in protecting freedom and democracy. And we need to make sure that we get her back on the Supreme Court and that we work to elect the appellate court judges, the state legislators, people who are in local offices, Don Davis in that swing congressional seat, and all of our other people who are running for Congress. All of these races are critical. But right now, you're going to hear from somebody whom we have to reelect. And I want to introduce to you my friend, this great justice on the state Supreme Court of North Carolina, Justice Anita Earls. Let's go win it for Justice Anita Earls. We're going to do it together. We're going to cross the finish line together, Justice Earls. Thank you for running. Thank you for stepping up.
Oh, thank you. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you, Governor, and soon to be Senator Cooper. I am so grateful for your kind introduction, and thank you to the North Carolina Democratic Party for giving me this opportunity to speak with all of you. I am just thrilled that you are here, and want to just take a minute to kind of arm you with the things that I hope you will tell people about me as you are going out throughout your communities. And the most important thing I hope you will be able to convey to people is that prior to being on the court, for 30 years, I was a civil rights attorney. And that means I was fighting for the rights of ordinary folks across the state. And that has been my commitment throughout my time on the court, that our job is to be a place that defends people's rights. And so I think you have a sense of what's at stake going forward for us here in North Carolina. You know about the gerrymandering decisions. You know that in 2022, our court said that extreme partisan gerrymandering, and we said no matter who does it, if that extreme partisan gerrymandering violates your right to vote under the state constitution. We required that districts be fair. North Carolina sent 7 Democrats and 7 Republicans to Congress. If the 2023 court that flipped to 5 Republican, 2 Democrats, that's what we have now, if that court had not reheard that case and said, oh no, we have no power to do anything about gerrymandering, today, the U.S. House of Representatives would be in control of Democrats, and we would have a check on what's happening in Washington. And similarly, we would have Governor Stein would have veto power. We would have a state legislature that fairly reflected the voting strength of people in this state. So it is no exaggeration to say that the only way we can restore a fair democracy in North Carolina is through our courts. And I am equally committed to talking about education, because public education is an arena where our court has a responsibility. We said in 2022, the democratically controlled court, we said that if the legislature won't adequately fund our public schools, it's up to the court to enforce that right to a sound basic education, and we ordered that the funds be spent. 2023 court reheard that, and we issued opinions last Friday. We still have not ruled. Here we are in August of 2025. The funds have been held up. Our court has still not ruled. And finally, of course, voting rights. Not only is gerrymandering an issue, but never forget that I serve with 4 Republicans who ruled that the votes of military and overseas voters should be thrown out in the 2024 election. Now, fortunately, a federal court stepped in and said you can't change the rules of the election after the election to change the outcome. but you can change the rules before the next election, and you're going to hear more about how you can help us address that problem. But if you believe, as I do, that our democracy is strongest when every voice is heard and every vote is fairly counted, then you deserve a court that will enforce those rights. And what I hope you recognize is the incredible power that all of you have. You know, Justice Riggs won by 734 votes, which is just a few less than the number of people right here on this call. Never doubt that even in a state of 7.5 million voters, every single vote counts, and every single person that you reach out to, every step that you take to help make our democracy work really makes a huge difference. We know that in 2026, our state judicial races will be close. But remember, in 2018, we turned the state blue. We won my seat and the 3 Court of Appeal seats that were up. And that's why those are the seats that are up again in 2026. So in addition to my seat, the only 3 Democrats on the Court of Appeals will be on the ballot in 2026, and we have to keep balance on that court. For independents and people who care about checks and balances, they should know that my opponent is Sarah Stevens, a 16-year veteran currently in the legislature from Mount Airy. She has been a leader of all of these things that the Republicans have done, including the gerrymandered maps. She has opposed drug courts. She's opposed foster care system reform. Basically, the voters are going to have a clear choice between someone who stands up for your rights and someone who has failed to do that in the General Assembly. So I hope you know how dependent I am on the North Carolina Democratic Party. I know that I cannot win without all of you and the work that you'll be doing. I am so grateful to our party leadership for understanding the importance of the courts and for charting a course. Both Justice Riggs and I are committed to not only we were committed to keeping Justice Riggs. We're going to win in 2026. And then 2028 is our opportunity to flip the court. There will be 3 Republican seats up, Chief Justice Newby, Justice Berenger, and Justice Philberger Jr. If Democrats win those seats, we will be back to a court that cares about your rights, that enforces those rights fairly. And I think what I want to leave you with is, from my 30 years, a lot of the time I was doing civil rights work, I was doing voting rights work, and I really saw how much it meant to people. You know, I was working on election protection hotline, and when someone was trying to vote and they couldn't get to the right place, or an election official was telling them they weren't on the rolls, when I was able as a lawyer to help them be able to get their ballot and cast their ballot, people really, it made a difference to folks. It makes a difference that they hear you, that you care about their votes. And what I can tell you from my experience going around the state for the past 6 months since the 2024 election, there's a lot of energy out there supporting an alternative to what we have right now. I was in Pender County on Saturday, and let me tell you, the Democratic women of Pender County had a standing room only crowd. That they didn't have enough capacity in their hall. There were over 100 people there. There's a lot of people wanting to know what they can do, and you as volunteers will give them that information, but also you will be the model for how we can get engaged in our democracy. So I am going to leave you with the folks who are going to give you the details, and I just want you to know how incredibly grateful I am to you, and how much I know that my hope in saving our democracy in the state lies with you. I think you will be our eyes and ears on the ground. My campaign would love to hear from you. If you hear things out there in the field, let us know what you're hearing. Give us that feedback. We've got about 15 months to go, and I will be working hard every single day to get word out to voters about what's at stake and why we need them to save our democracy. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to our amazing party leader, Anderson Clayton.
Thank you so much, Justice Earls, for all that you do for our party and our state. Fun fact about Justice Earls, in case you want to take it around, she was on the short list to be on the U.S. Supreme Court. So when you think about a badass, we've got one in North Carolina. But I know right now, folks are looking for a Democratic Party that fights back. They're looking for the pathway forward. What's the playbook? What's the plan? And I need you all to know that North Carolina Dems have been working on a plan from the 2024 election. And we knew when our officer board came into power in 2023 that our courts had been one of the biggest deciding pieces of backing up our Republican dominated state legislature from disenfranchising people across North Carolina, from defunding and denying public schools and our public school teachers what they needed, and also the ability to strip away and back up the legislature's ability to strip away power from our Council of State, which includes our governor, our attorney general, and all of the other races that we saw on the ballot last year. We knew that when we came into power in 2023, that we had 3 cycles that were going to be important for this party. 24 was important because we had to hold a Democratic Supreme Court seat. Right now, there are 7 justices on the North Carolina Supreme Court. 5 are Republican, 2 are Democratic, which means that 2024 was a hold for us, which because of everybody on this call, and there is truly 702 people on here, 734 votes is what won a Supreme Court election out of 5.5 million cast last year. And in 2026, we have another Democratic seat up with Justice Earls, who you just got to hear from, that is going to be extremely important as well. And in 2028, North Carolina has the ability to take 3 Republican seats that will be up on our North Carolina Supreme Court. We can flip back our court and give back power and do exactly what Republicans did to us in 2023 when they took control of our Supreme Court from the 2022 election cycle, which is repeal partisan and racial gerrymandering and give 4 more House of Representative seats back to the Democratic Party, and also give voters across our state a free and fair chance at elections. That is the plan to make sure that voters have the power. And in the meantime, we are going to do everything we can to push back against their extremism in this state. But when we look at the fascism that we exist in right now, North Carolina has been going through it since 2010, when Republicans took control of our state legislature on maps that Democrats had drawn for themselves. We all have work to do, and we're going to continue to do it with your help and your wisdom and your guidance. So thank you all for being on here tonight. And now we're going to get to the part of the program that's my personal favorite, to be honest with y'all. I love a good speech too, and I love to make sure that y'all hear our candidates, but I want y'all to hear the work that's going on right now. So I'm going to turn it over to our voter protection director at the state party, Kat Lawson, everybody, who's going to walk you all through what voter registration repair program looks like.
Thanks, Anderson, and thank you all so much for being here tonight. Y'all have heard how important every single vote is, and we already know in advance of 2026 exactly what votes are being targeted to be discounted before those voters even get a chance. 82,700 North Carolina voters are going to get a letter this week or next week from the State Board of Elections saying that their voter registrations are invalid. These voters are going to be told that if they don't take an affirmative step to repair their voter file, they will be required to cast a provisional ballot when they show up to vote next. And we know that in races where 734 votes is the difference between winning and losing, keeping a Democratic seat on our Supreme Court, or losing yet another one to the Republicans. We know that every single one of these votes matter, and we know that we as the Democratic Party are here to make sure that those votes get counted and those voters get protected. We keep hearing from voters across North Carolina that they want to know that the Democratic Party is for them sometime other than the 2 weeks before an actual election day when we're asking for their vote. Doing the work now of communicating with these voters, showing up to help them, affirmatively walking them through this process and defending their vote before we ask for it is one of the ways that we show that we are the party that is actually here for the people, that we are the party that actually cares about the process and who cares about them being able to cast votes that then get counted down the line. And we also know that these 82,700 voters are not just a representative sample from across our state. They are an incredibly disproportionate group of voters that come from some of our more rural counties, that come from our Black counties. So you can see here in this map, while some of our larger counties have the largest raw numbers, these are the counties that have the highest per capita number of voters in their county who are being targeted on this list. And so we have our counties that are some of the most underserved, that are some of the least funded with their boards of elections when it comes to being able to take care of handling this responsibility that the state board has given to them. And not only do we see that this decision and this action by the state board is geographically, right, disproportional in its distribution. It is also racially disproportionate. I think surprising absolutely no one who understands the history of voting rights and the fight for civil rights in our state and in our country. Black voters in North Carolina are 3 times more likely to be on this list than white voters, even though there are more white voters than there are Black voters in North Carolina. That means that 3% of all Black voters in the state are on this list and are having their votes targeted in advance of the next election cycle. And so we have opportunities to reach out to these voters, to help them, to support them. We've been doing the work already. So you all have been, I am sure there are folks in here who've been a part of our phone banks, where we have been reaching out and making phone calls multiple times per week. Andrew, you want to flip to the next slide? Sorry. You can see that what we've been doing, we've been making phone banks, we've been making calls. Over 70,000 calls have been made. And those calls have been being made by y'all. They've been made by volunteers. They've been made by folks around the country and in our state in order to reach out to these voters, educate them, tell them what to pay attention to, what to look out for. We also, now that we actually have the image of the letter that's going out to voters this week, NCDP is texting the voters with an image of the envelopes that they're going to be receiving, telling them this is not junk mail, this is not spam, it's not a conspiracy. This is real. This is from the state board. Don't throw this away. To do what you need to do in order to protect your vote. And then we are also having a call to action for September. We're going to be going door to door. We're going to be meeting voters where they're at. We're going to be coming in as members of the community who show up and who care and who spend the time to meet voters and educate them and help them walk through this process. And so to tell us more about the calls to action, about y'all's opportunities to take part in all of these activities, Jonah Garson, our first vice chair, is also going to share some more information about how you can sign up.
Oh, I just want to begin by saying I can't tell you how important it is to have the support of so many folks on this call to fund and support a year-round voter protection program. Kat Lawson is brilliant. She leads the best voter protection department in the country that is not just about reactive voter protection around the elections, but is thinking about future threats, thinking about proactive litigation, thinking about what it means to have a board of elections that has change control that's been seized by radical GOP in this state. So you all heard from her. I urge you to come to our future meetings. You'll hear a lot more from her. We need folks right now who are on this call to sign up for shifts for registration repair. You heard that these letters, which are frankly frightening to voters, are going out from the Board of Elections this week. We need people on the phones on Tuesday and Thursday to have thoughtful conversations with targeted voters for this registration repair effort, okay? We need you to sign up right now. That is the point of this call. We wanted to rally folks, but Justice Earls and Governor Cooper know that the first step to big victories in 2026 is addressing this very present threat and addressing it proactively and aggressively now. You heard we've already done 70,000 calls, all right? And these calls, they move quickly because you will only be connected with folks who pick up the phone, all right? We have special technology that does that. So the links are in the chat. Sign up right now. We need you, okay? That's number one. Number two, on September 16th, we will be training folks about how to do the next phase of this registration repair effort. All the people we haven't been able to reach via phone and via text, we are going to knock on their doors in every single county in this state. September 16th is when you get the training. And then in the next couple weekends after that, depending on what county you live in, we will be going door to door, okay? We will leave no voter for Democrats behind, okay? So what I want you to do is not just sign up for the phone banks this week. I need you to do that. I want you to sign up for the Canvas training and commit to a canvassing shift. Y'all, we are a party of action. For the past few years, we have worked our asses off to build a Democratic Party capable of throwing a punch, capable of fighting and winning the toughest fights at the ballot box, in the field, and in the courtroom, because that's what the times requires. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm going to turn things over right now to our chair to keep things moving. Thanks.
If you all did not catch those links, that is a-okay. We are also going to send them around afterwards in a wrap-up email. So, they're flying through the chat box, and I know a lot of other comments are too. If you all have questions, though, just because the chat box is flying off, we have got a Q&A box that is also right beside the chat box at the bottom of your screen. If you all are having a hard time finding that, that is a-okay too. And we'll try to catch as many of them that we can that are coming through the chat box as well, because we're also going to do a short Q&A part after this to make sure that people feel confident when they leave here. But we've also got important elections in 2025. There are no off years for this party whatsoever. And North Carolina Dems have made an increasing effort to make sure that we have people running at every level of the ballot, because we don't want rural counties to think that there are not Democrats in them that want to step up and represent their values right now when our communities are under threat. And so I'm honored to be able to pass the microphone over to the phenomenal Dr. Kimberly Hardy, everybody, who's on here tonight with us to talk about why local elections matter and the importance of getting involved in your backyard too.
Thanks, Anderson. Hi, everybody. I've pulled over on the side of the road from dropping my son off at college, hence the Mama Bear t-shirt. But I did it because this is such an important topic at such an important time. Local leadership is absolutely critical. Anderson says it all the time, that the closer someone's name is to the bottom of the ballot, the closer they are to your doorstep. And so for people who are willing to stand up and lead right where they live, that is really important. So it's important to know that we've got a great senator coming in Governor Cooper. We have an amazing justice that we need to keep on the Supreme Court for Justice Earls. We have amazing people who will be on the ballot in 26. But it's also important who your mayors are, who your city council folks are. And so we just want to take a second to thank everyone who was courageous enough and compassionate enough and had enough gumption to put their name on the ballot for a local race. These races also help the voters. One, it lets them know that there are Democrats everywhere, no matter where they live, and there's someone to fight for, that someone right in their community can make a difference, and they want to be able to support someone locally. That also helps to make sure that people stay in the rhythm of voting every year. And so if this is someone's first time coming out to vote in an election at all, then this is a great training ground for them to come back and do it again in 2026. And we are so excited about all of the resources and supports that we're giving to our local candidates. And it's everything from technical support, like helping them design a website, things like that, things that often they don't have a lot of support for, to an amazing series of trainings. For example, trainings on how to come up with a campaign strategy, how to fundraise, because they do need a lot of support in that area as well. These races don't get the same type of attention that some of the bigger races do. And so they're going to get training on how to do communications strategies. So there are a lot of things that they get support on. And of course, our amazing regional organizing directors will be out helping them create canvases and knocking on doors to let everybody know who they are and that they're running. So that's just some of the great stuff that we're doing to help our local candidates. We are very, very grateful for every one of them who has stepped up to run this year. And to speak a little bit more about the canvases and what our regional organizers are doing to be supportive of them, I'll pass it over to the incomparable Sarah O'Brien, our organizing director. Or our chair, who's also incomparable. There we go. I see you, so I thought it was you. Okay, there we go. Hi, Sarah.
Hello, thank you, Dr. Hardy, and thank you for shouting out the organizing department and the work that's already going on. We know that in local elections, grassroots power beats everything else, right? It's more important than money, it's more important than mailers, it's more important than any other way of reaching voters. We know that when we have conversations with our neighbors face to face, that really makes a difference. And in these low turnout elections with small districts, you can win by a handful of votes. And that's who you reach when you talk to voters. So we're already out knocking doors. This weekend, all of the regional organizing directors across the state were out knocking alongside candidates. And we have lots of opportunities for you to join them coming up in September and October. So we're going to drop a link in the chat. You can find a canvas near you. There's also links there to get trained up. So if you haven't canvassed before, this is a great time to get your feet wet, to learn how to canvass with us, how to use our software, and then go out and do it. And it makes a huge difference in these local elections. That's how we're going to win. We know that a handful of votes makes a big difference in local elections, and it's going to take all of us knocking doors to talk to our neighbors. And I will pass it to Elijah King, who is our third vice chair. And I'm happy to hand it over to him.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Sarah. And it's so exciting to see you all here tonight. I just worked, I just got home from a waiter shift at Elma's Diner over in Durham. And I want you to remember this one thing. When you walk those long hours in the heat of the summer and the cold of the winter, when you take your shifts phone banking, when you show up time and time again, you are fighting for people like me. You're fighting for people like my coworkers who are just trying to make it, who are counting their tips at the end of the day, hoping that will pay the rent. People who are depending on us getting this right. You are the ones pushing us over the finish line. And what you're doing isn't just politics. And I want you to remember that. It's life-changing work for families, for workers, and communities all across North Carolina and all 100 counties. Every call, every conversation, every door knocked is one step closer to building a state where all of us can not only survive, but thrive. So thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. From this team, thank you. Thank you for giving your time, your energy, and your heart to this movement. Thank you for giving your all. Last year for justice, the Supreme Court races last year, and this year and next year. We can't win without you. And I know from last year, you know that. And because of you, I know we will win. So thank you, and thank you again. I look forward to seeing you all out there.
Thank you so much, Elijah. Thank you to everybody for being on this call tonight. I hope you all got to hear a little bit about something that you all can do to take action. But I want to be clear with everybody. If you've heard something tonight and you're like, I don't know that that's for me yet, tell us what your job should be. This party is one where there is a job for everybody. And if you don't know what your job is, you need to tell us what your job is. And that might mean that you're the person that brings the waters to the canvas, or that you're the silent canvasser, and that you're driving people around while they go out to canvas and making it faster for them to go house to house. It might mean that you're the person that's willing to host an event in your backyard with your county party and bringing people together in your community. It may mean that you're the person that's willing to go and make sure that you're leading up the volunteer shifts to go out and serve at the local food bank in your community. It can be a wide variety of things right now. We are a Democratic Party that is supposed to be the party of helping the least of these. And right now, we need to make sure that we step up in that moment. And I know that people are discouraged, that they are pissed off, and that they are looking up instead of looking down. We need a North Carolina that looks down at the ground level right now and the impacts that we can have across this state. We are going to make it to 2028. And if you think that we're not, you are letting Republicans win right now. We need to make sure that we are fighting back at every single level. And that includes seeing it from us. And we want to make sure that you do. And we hope tonight that you understand there are 3 amazing ways to get involved with this party right now. 1, through phone banking for the voter registration repair program. 2, for canvassing for the voter registration repair program. And also number 3, getting involved with your municipal elections this year in your backyard. We have so many amazing Democrats who are going to be the future state legislators, members of Congress, but the bench is built at the local level, and everybody knows that. And so I want to make sure that you all know our party is working from the grassroots up, the bottom up, to ensure that we have the best representatives elected at each level. And I know that folks are saying, Anderson, and I'm like, well, and if you don't think that we do, I challenge you to step up and be one of those elected representatives. Run for office yourself. We're going to have another filing deadline in December, everybody, for our state legislative seats. And we want to make sure that we've got somebody in all 170 state House and Senate races, again, that are taking on and holding Republicans accountable at every level across all 100 counties in North Carolina right now. And we need your help to do that. And we're not leaving one congressional seat either uncontested in 2026. And we already have phenomenal candidates who have stepped up to run to represent you in Congress, even under gerrymandered ass maps that Republicans in our state legislature have handed to us. And so you all need to understand that we've got amazing opportunities on the ground. And I really appreciate all of you being here tonight. That's my last passion speech on it. I'm going to go to the Q&A box now and make sure that we answer your questions, because I know there are a lot of them, and I know that we won't get to all of them tonight. I'm hoping that we will, but also we're going to follow up. We're going to send out the recording of this call too for folks that signed up that maybe want to follow up afterwards. And again, we'll also send up a wrap-up email with all of the links that you got put in the chat box tonight that got thrown at you, but we want to make sure that you all stay involved and stay engaged at the local level. I will also say, this is not supposed to be a call where we plug for donations, but I've seen way too many people ask about it. As a state chair, where I would tell you to give your money right now is making sure it's at a local level. I would hope that you support your county parties, your state party, your local candidates, your Supreme Court justice candidate, making sure that we are supporting North Carolina. I understand there's a lot of organizations that are asking for your time, your energy, your money right now that are also texting you. North Carolina Dems are not going to be texting you for money. We're going to be texting you saying, hey, did you know your voter registration is being challenged right now by Republicans? And we want to make sure that we're using every bit of the resources that we have to organize on the ground. We know that last year, 200,000 more Democrats came out and voted at the top of the ticket for Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Josh Stein than they did our Supreme Court race. Voter education, just amongst even Democrats and left-leaning unaffiliated, is so important. So if you do one more thing when you get off this call tonight, go post Justice Anita Earls' website on your social media. Go tell more people in your networks about who she is, because people need to know name recognition, and they need to know that you've heard from her tonight about her responsibility to each and every single voter in North Carolina and how she's going to fight for them. So I'm going to kick it over to the chat box, and I might pull up Kat Lawson for some of these too. So I'm going to make sure, and also maybe Sarah O'Brien too. I might bring them back up. The first question is from Kara. She says, will the door-to-door canvassing efforts to explain voter registration repair issues be tied to canvassing efforts for municipal elections at all? Sarah, do you want to take that one?
So we are running parallel programs. So we're going to be talking to anybody we talk to about repairing the registration to go and vote as well. We're focusing on reaching voters for Democrats first. I saw that question in the chat. We are also simultaneously knocking doors and making calls on behalf of municipal candidates. We know that we have enough volunteers to do it all, and we know that there's time sensitivity for both types of canvases.
Thank you, Sarah.
Can I put in a quick plug here?
Yeah, Jonah.
Anderson and Sarah, y'all, canvassing. If you haven't done it, get trained up. Do it for the first time, even if you're a partnered silent canvasser. It is the most effective way to do direct voter contact. Okay? It is the most effective way. We have empirical studies here in North Carolina, recent empirical studies that show that. And we know that canvassing, engaging early, when we're not just asking folks for their votes, when we're working to help people and help them engage on a local level, we know that that work matters. So if you haven't canvassed, sign up for the training on September 16th to do this very special voter registration repair canvas work.
Thanks, Shona. Kat, do you believe that in North Carolina, the Republicans are going to try to gerrymander us even worse than they already have? Is that possible?
You know, I'm sure that if they thought they could, they would try. But, you know, silver linings in terrible situations. They've been gerrymandering us so much for so long that, like, there's not really more that they can do here. Really what we're seeing is that while Texas Republicans and other Republicans around the country are kind of following the North Carolina GOP's pattern and practice and tradition in creating incredibly partisan gerrymandering maps, here our Republicans have moved on. They're now focusing on how can we steal the State Board of Elections away from the governor and put it under a Republican in the auditor's office? How can we make sure that we flip all of the county boards of elections to Republican control, which now means, as we're getting the data in from this last week or so, precinct judges, the poll workers who are in charge of making sure that each individual polling site follows the law, is fair to voters, is friendly to voters, is safe for voters. Those teams are now going to be Republican majority too in almost all of our counties. So our Republicans are they're more advanced in their sneakiness, which is why our voter protection effort is year round. It's why we don't only show up during an election. We're here in advance so that we are tracking these changes, we're following these changes, and we're using all of this to plan for next year.
Kat, one more for you. How was it decided that they just picked like 113,000 voters in North Carolina to challenge and try to strip them and purge them from the voter rolls?
Mm-hmm. So this list of voters was at least 4 years in the making. So Republicans came up several years ago with this theory about why it was that they thought that certain types of voters weren't including the right kind of information in their voter files. And so they started making lawsuits around the country in this. And so they filed lawsuits in 4 different states. Then they filed a lawsuit in 2023 for North Carolina. They filed before the 2024 election. They kept on asking federal courts to say, yes, you're right, you should be able to throw out all these voters. And so in North Carolina, the Republican list started at 225,000 with their first lawsuit. And then they were told, no, you can't do that for 2024. And then Jefferson Griffin was like, well, what if I call that list something a little bit different and I try again? And then his list was about 66,000 in 6 specific counties. And now we see that they've kind of just like, they're taking a third bite at the apple for this theory that courts keep telling them is not legitimate. And so ultimately, though, what this comes down to is they work their way backward. They come up with a bunch of different theories and a bunch of different attacks for why it is that a voting system should be changed or why certain voters should get challenged. And it all comes back to they're taking the paths that they think are going to get them more Republican votes and fewer Democratic votes, right? And a lot of it is built on misinformation and active disinformation, right? It's being done in bad faith, much like we saw this past week when all of a sudden President Trump was like, well, I talked to Putin and he told me that mail-in ballots are really, really bad. Now we're going to try to get rid of them all. Constitution doesn't let him do that. Republicans use mail-in voting the same way that Democrats use it and unaffiliateds use it. In North Carolina, mail-in voting is actually really secure because we've had to make it secure after Republicans tried to cheat with it back in 2019, 2016. 19, whatever the year was, McCready. We know this. We know that they keep practicing and finding these ways to cause confusion, to sow confusion amongst the electorate. And they're just trying to work their way backward to getting rid of Democratic voters because they know that a couple hundred can be the difference in an election.
Kat, here's another one for you, honestly. What are the chances, I don't know. What are the chances that our state Supreme Court will do the right thing on the Leandro decision? And if not, what's going to be their justification? It's in our state constitution to fully fund our public schools.
Yeah. I used to be so much more optimistic, y'all. I'm not anymore, not with this court. So I don't believe that they are going to uphold the Leandro promise that is in our Constitution, right? And so they're going to say that it's just too hard. They're going to say that the raw money, right, is probably just not something that you can really keep track of. They're going to say that the court doesn't have the power to tell the General Assembly to follow the Constitution, and they're just going to let it go, which is why it's up to us, right? We need the courts as the backstop for abuses and as the backstop against exploitation of voters, of workers, of families in our state. The courts can only do so much. We know that we need the courts to restrict and to stop the worst abuses of the system that we can see coming out of our General Assembly. We also need to flip the General Assembly. And that's why you hear us all talking about, yes, 2026 and yes, 2028, but this is a long haul game, right? We are working towards 2030. We are looking towards the next time that we're going to have census maps where we redraw all of our districts to get free and fair elections for North Carolina. And we're going to get ourselves a Democratic General Assembly in order to do that.
Thank you, Kat. If I've got any more questions, if you'll place them in the chat box or in the Q&A box, not the chat box. I'm getting those boxes a little confused today. But yeah, and also what y'all need to understand too is that we're also going to go on the offense with them. We're going to make sure that the Supreme Court understands that people are not going to forget about Leandro. It's a 31-year-old court decision. It's exactly what Republicans want right now and think is going to happen, is that the public's not paying attention to the fact that there is a court case right now that Republicans could help actually fully fund our public schools, give teachers the raises that they deserve, even though our Republican-led state legislature refuses to pass a budget right now too. So while they are inefficient and ineffective at that, our courts could come in and actually do the work that our state legislature is supposed to be doing right now, and also they refuse to. I'm still looking for any other questions, and staff, feel free if y'all see any in the chat box that I might have missed that would be important, or Jonah, feel free. But otherwise, Sarah, would you mind dropping all the links in the chat box one more time? I think that would be helpful for folks just to re-up them for everybody one more time. I see this one from Joshua that says, how are the Democrats working on a playbook planning for going forward? What can we do to significantly increase Democratic turnout? Honestly, getting out and talking to our friends and our family and voters in your community. I saw a lot of people say that they had been organizing their precincts. We say start local for a reason. And I'll be honest with y'all, I know it's uncomfortable sometimes to get out there and call strangers and knock on the doors of them, but the opportunity is that we have to build community as a party. The post-pandemic world that we find ourselves in right now created isolationism, and it allowed for Republicans to other people more and more and more. And it allowed them to be able to sow a distrust in communities across this country within each other. And we need to make sure that we understand, that we help people understand that community is what makes this country strong, and it's what makes our state strong. We care about each other. And that's what we saw in Western North Carolina after Hurricane Helene came through. Communities that stepped up, not just the state government, not just the federal government, but our communities that came together and helped each other. And we know that our party is a party of help, and it can be. And so I challenge you all right now too, if you're looking at our party and you're like, man, I'm not feeling it, change it. Every single thing that you do to get involved in it, you are the Democratic Party. There's a phrase in union organizing that says we are the union and we are the party. And when we change what the party is saying, who's running, and what it looks like right now, we have the opportunity to also control the narrative at the national level too. North Carolina is the future of the Democratic Party, especially in the South. We are a party that is going to work extremely hard over the next year, 2 years, 4 years, 5, 6, whatever, how many, just think. But I'm like, it's a 10-year plan that we're looking at, folks, and we need you all a part of it.
All right.
So, any other questions, Jonah Garson? Do you see any?
Well, I've been enlisted by staff to put in a plug. Once you have signed up for all the shifts to talk on the phone and knock all the doors, we need you at the state fair, October 16th through the 26th. We need you to sign up to help work our booth. Listen, if you haven't run your mouth to talk about how great our state party is before, this is a great entry-level activity. You can load up with fried food, head over to the booth, and talk about the work that we're doing that you've just heard about tonight on this call. The local work, the registration repair work, and the work we're doing to make sure that we win a U.S. Senate seat from North Carolina and that we reelect Justice Anita Earls and the rest of our great judicial candidates. So link in the chat. We'll also put that in the follow-up email. My plug is done.
Thank you so much, Jonah. And shout out to Dorian Palmer, our coalitions director, who is working extremely hard on our state fair right now, making sure that we've got a booth and some merch that we're going to have at it too. So if you've not bought your Roy Cooper for Senate shirt, we got some Coop Can Hoops shirts that everybody will love. They're on the NCDP website. You can go visit our store after this if you get the chance, and you can wear some of our merchandise. Any other questions from folks that I am forgetting? Let's see. Rural counties, I see, do you have enough local support to help repair process in the rural counties? I want to give a shout out to my rural county party chairs right now. They have worked so hard to make sure that they have taken the list of repair voters and honestly narrowed it down to their counties. And so our county parties in every corner of the state are working hard to identify who knows each voter in each county, because in the rural areas, you know your neighbor, but you also know the neighbor that knows a neighbor too. And so making sure that we're using those local connections to ensure that people trust the person that's reaching out to them. But if you're interested in getting involved with that, how we're trying to make sure that we do it is that it is doing statewide voter repair for our phone banks, our canvases, and then we're going to go hyper local too, right before municipal elections, to make sure that we are reaching every single voter humanly possible. Republicans have done this to make it harder, right, and honestly have made us try to do more work to register and re-register voters that are already registered versus going out and registering new voters. And I know the last question that I'll take tonight is just about voter registration. I know that folks have seen a lot of scary headlines recently about the slide and the dip in voter registration for Democrats. And I think that people need to understand that goes back into a lot of how voter registration programs are funded in this country right now, but also within the Democratic Party right now. We really rely heavily on nonpartisan organizations because they are able to get into spaces that Democratic parties, quite frankly, are not, especially when you look at high schools, especially when you look at community colleges and other organizations and other areas where we're trying to register people. That does not mean that we don't understand understand that we have got a problem with people wanting to affiliate with our party. And it has been a long game in North Carolina for Republicans to disenfranchise people across this state. And it's also led to voters feeling like their votes don't matter and Democrats feeling alienated from our party. And we have a lot of work to do in making sure that people feel represented by our party in every corner of the state, which means making sure that we are contesting every election to help people understand that our party is reaching them at every level. But if you're somebody that's interested in getting involved or doing that work in your backyard, your county parties will set you up with voter registration clipboards. They will make sure that you all are in areas to do high traffic canvassing if that is your interest right now too. Like I said, there's a job for everybody in this party, and we definitely want to make sure that we are encouraging Democrats to join our party or people to register as Democrats to join our party. But also, we're not going to leave out unaffiliated voters. We're going to target them, which is exactly what we did last election cycle too, making sure that we are reaching out to Dem, left-leaning unaffiliateds and independents, and honestly, Republicans that feel alienated from their party right now as well. We know that people want a better North Carolina, and why we saw so many statewide wins last cycle and not one at the national level in this state was because people felt better about the direction of the state than they did the direction of the country. And we all have to prove that we know that Democrats have got a better direction forward for the United States and for North Carolina. And that means making sure, to Governor Cooper's point earlier, there is opportunity across every zip code in this state. It is the history of Democrats to build up public education in North Carolina. We're the party that comes from people like Governor Sanford and Governor Jim Hunt and people that created the legacy of K through 12 education and higher education in North Carolina and trade schools in North Carolina, community colleges that build out economic opportunity for people across our state. We need to make sure that people know we value the ability to stay and work and live where you are, and making North Carolina a place that people do not have to choose to leave, especially if you grow up in a rural part of this state right now that has been suffering under Republican policies. And we know that we have the best message to go out to those communities and tell them that this year and help them understand what Raleigh and Washington have been doing to them. And we need your help. So I hope after tonight you feel energized. You know what your job is, or you're going to tell me what your job is. My email's on the state party website, and Sarah is happy to connect with folks in the organizing department, and our regionals are too. A very big thank you to the North Carolina Democratic Party staff who works extremely hard to make sure that we have been working year round. They did not get a break after the election. We had Republicans that came in and denied a Supreme Court election for 6 months in North Carolina. And we were a party that fought back because we held that seat and we won that fight. And we can do it again with your help. So thank you all so much for being on here tonight. I really appreciate it. And just let's go fight win. Bye, everybody.